Gang, Kevin here, Life22, and it is pre-game day, right? It is the day before Election Day, and yeah, no, it's it's a busy one here in the city of Olean. Not busy, but we've got two contested races. It's a little exciting, right? So, out of the alderman race. And we got a governor race, gubernatorial, yeah, you got it. Anyways, so we're gonna give you my picks. So right now, I think I'm gonna take Zeldin moneyline, because I think, and I'm hoping that the Dems are out. I'm hoping that's out at state level. It's not gonna last long. But it's a good sign to show that, like, the red wave is here, people. The people have spoken and they want to change, finally. And then at our local city level, we've got Ward 1, 3, and 5 up on the Common Council. And I think number 5 is an easy one to pick. It's going to be Johnny Boy Crawford. And it's because he's uncontested and there's no write-in campaigns. He didn't even get a mention in the paper, from what I could tell. I mean, he gets mentions in the paper all the time, though. So, we know you're counting them, Johnny. So, but that said, I guess I want to start with Ward 3. Well, we started with 5. We're jumping to 3, and then we'll end with 1, which is the juiciest of all the fights. So we've got, and I read I'm not super familiar with the Ivan Forney race. I've met Forney once. She seems to have a decent head on her shoulders. I know Carissa. And, I mean, she was a good singer back in the day. I used to show up at the open mic nights her brother would throw at Tito's. Right? Every so often I'd get drunk and they'd throw a set of drumsticks at me and I'd be too drunk to keep a beat, and they'd kick me off the drum set. I was like Animal. They didn't like that. So, anyways, regardless, so I had to read this news article here. So she was in the AmeriCorps for a few years before she came back to Olean, and during that time period, she must have caught the bug, right? She came back like super leftist. Like, hey, I get it. Hey, she's one of the few leftists that's trying to keep her kids, right? The rest of them are all like, hey, yeah, let's practice having kids, and then, like, if we may have an accident, we, you know what I mean? So hey, she's, good on her. She didn't abort her kids, so that's one in the plus column for she's not a total leftist, but, I'm reading this, and where was it? Oh, so there was a rumor on the street. And her initial campaign started that she was running for the alder. Not the alderwoman, not the alderman, not the alder person, the alder. She was just running as an alder. I know what that is. So, because the charter specifies an individual is an alderman, and multiple is aldermen. Like, it's just how it's written, right? So, like, anything other than that is you're not taking the position. You're running for the alder? Oh, then I guess you're not running for Common Council, because the name of the position is alderman. Like, that's it. Like, it's like when the DNC tried to change the word, like, amen to, like, and a woman. Like, that's not what it means. It's, yeah. So anyways, yeah, So, little constructive criticism here. Forney's was kind of bland, right? Like, I remember my first race, and both of these people are new to Common Council races and politics, apparently, so, yeah, just a bit bland. Like, we need to maybe organize a neighborhood watch, and, it's time to make a stand, and then it just kind of, like, peters out towards the end of the article. But at least she has a rough grasp, where Ivan is Carissa is claiming too much. So she goes into this and like, I decided I was going to run because of the murder a block from her house. Like, I remember when I ran, there was drug dealers around the corner from my house selling drugs, and we had just had the birth of Quinn, my first biological daughter, and I was like, we were starting to grow our family, and I'm like, I ain't standing for this, so I called the police department. I offered to be a neighborhood watch. I offered to wear a wire and go in, and whatever I had to do, and most of the response I got was, call your alderman. You got an issue with something like that, call your alderman. Call my alderman. He had some medical concerns. He wasn't really up for phone calls and things like that. So it was one of those, like I said, screw it, I'm running, and I'm doing this. I'm gonna make a change, and I get it. But your final straw is that like somebody was murdered around the corner from your house. Like, I mean, if you're coming from the left side of the aisle, the ideology of not putting anybody in jail and not holding people accountable and decaying the economy and causing people to do rash things because they can't feed their families or they feel entitled to do whatever the hell they want. I mean, there's a lot of things that says there, but like, what are you going to do to stop murderers? You know what I mean? A group of guys from Jamestown came in and snuffed one of their own. Like, the guy wasn't even from Olean. It wasn't like he just came and killed a resident on that street. They like went into a resident's home, did a drug deal, and then shot a guy. Like, shot one of the guys they brought with them. Like, yeah. So, let's see here. Bringing something new. Top issues to tackle here are going to be housing, right? Like, what are you going to do? We're going to set up programs, and we're going to give government funds. So anytime the government gives money, dumps it into a community, right? Like stimulus checks, for example, you hyperinflate the economy, right? So even at a lower, like, whether it's at the national level, it's at the state level, it's at the local level, whatever it is, the county level, like when you start influxing money into people's pockets and it's not earned, like you create inflation. You create problems. The government does not understand this. Like, there's certain things that you have to do, right? Like, if you privatize the police force, like, yeah, you might have an issue because now it's all like, it's not based on, like community standards and things like that. So, I mean, it's really like there's certain things that the government has to do, like the military. Like if the military-industrial complex became a problem because it was a private entity, right? Like, okay, a lot of checks and balances with stuff like that. But you start like rent control and property improvements and like, listen, if they're giving out free money, like, I'm not gonna not take it because it's going to get used up and it's going to inflate and affect all of us. So, hey, might as well be on the bottom line of that, right? So, but the fact is, like, she's just coming right in saying, like, we need to do this, we need to do that. Like, if you're really that serious, like, so this is why I'm critiquing her more, because she's saying more. Forney's kind of, like, leaving it vague, which it hurts you if you're writing an article for a guy like me to read, but the general public is not as potentially turned off by saying as much as Carissa is. So Carissa's in here really just kind of like feeding it, right? And like, we need to be dumping money into our parks next. And it's like, okay, well, great. Let's overhaul the parks. Let's do this. Let's apply for more grants. Let's put in a grant writer. If you're interested in doing all these things and doing all this spending, you really, don't read the Ward 1 race article because they're talking about curtailing spending. But also, like, you should probably maybe, like, I know she's been showing up to the council. She had been showing up to the council meetings, like, right before I left. So, I mean, we're talking, like, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. She had been showing back up to these meetings. You'd think that, like, she could have used that time during budget season at least to review the budget if she was intending on running, right? Like, that's, I mean, I ran against her for the school board because she was trying to, like, indoctrinate those woke principles and reinforce them in the school district. So I think if you look at the budget, there's not a lot of fat to be, like, throwing around to parks and things like that. So that's why parks are capital projects, and you pick one every few years. If you revitalized all the parks every time there was a new freaking alderman, like the city be broke, and all the parks would be like a week old before they got planned to be torn out and replaced again. And that's not how it works. Like, parks are fine, and they last for like 50 years. So I'm also a firm believer in wooden playgrounds, because like, you're not a kid unless you can pull out like railroad spike size splinters out of yourself. Like, that's what breeds strong kids. That's what we're looking for. Strong kids. These little weaklings. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. So my pick is going to be on Forney. Also past track record, because even Carissa didn't make the school board, and she's a super leftist. So like, I knew if I didn't make it, listen, I lost that race because school districts are very left. I'm very right. Both pun intended and not, but and even the leftists of the school board didn't want her. So gonna go with nice, safe, lukewarm article of water from Forney. So just gotta tell it how it is. I'm like, nothing against her. I just think the article is pretty bland, on her side, and Clarissa said too much. So, anyways, the juiciest ward battle right here coming up. Ward 1. It's the third fight. It's the third matchup between J.R. Benyon and Linda Witt. My pick is, I think JR's got it in the bag this year. I know JR very well, and I know Linda very well. And I spent a lot of time on the council with Linda. And, I mean, her side of the article is as lukewarm as Forney. It's less lukewarm because Linda's seasoned. She's a seasoned veteran of talking about out both sides of her face. So, like, Linda's in here talking about how she voted against spending because she turned down the bathroom projects and at Oak Hill Park, and that was, and I know like a lot of the insider stuff to that because I was even off the council when that stuff was going on, but I follow it very closely, and I can read between the lines when stuff like that happens. Like, she needed Dave Anastasia's vote on something else, and Dave was hung up on the bathrooms being $200,000. And it just became a pissing war between Dave Anastasia and John Crawford on whether the bathroom should exist at Oak Hill Park. And so it was really like, that's what it was. She was trying to curtail votes, and John had pissed her off on something else and wasn't going to vote for her lighting project at Forest Park. And even JR calls her out in the article, like, yeah, well, it's a bit nepotism here for your daughter's the commissioner of the softball league, and the big project that's going to cost like tons of money is lighting up the softball fields. But you want to kibosh the entire dog park, basketball court remodel, tennis court remodel, like theater and bathrooms, all because bathrooms, and John won't vote for your lighting project. Like, wow, that's, you know what I mean? And it wasn't about curtailing spending. That's, people were talking about in spending and too much spending and yada yada, and then you give that as an example. That's a bit. JR's hard ass. He wants to make sure that like every dollar is spent. I got so much shit from him when I was an alderman just because I know him, and he would be like, why are you doing the farmer's market? What's this? How about this? Half the stuff he was complaining about were things that happened before I was on the council. But yeah, like, he's like a hawk. He was like aware of like 95% of the projects that had gone on with the city, and he wasn't even in politics at the time. The extent of his politics was he ran the diesels, and because there was like a hiccup with like, well, the Oilers were coming in, and and the Oilers wanted the field, and they didn't want football to mess up the Bradner's football stadium, which then got changed to Bradner's multi-use stadium. Then it's not like it's Bradner Stadium, but like how it's listed, it was always like a football stadium, and then they added baseball and they called it multi-use in references and articles and stuff. And it's neat how the narrative around it changed to Bradner's baseball stadium. You know what I mean? Like, it's Bradner's stadium for baseball. Like, that's the narrative anytime it's being referred to in a lot of newspaper articles and in inner office memos, and it shows you like and so like JR stood up against it. He's like, listen, no, it's a football. It's designed to. We'll share it, multi-use, whatever. But like, don't just sit there and say we're gonna hog it for baseball, like, because it started as a football stadium, and that was it. Like, if I donated money and said like, hey, we're gonna, because that's how Bradner's got started. It was donated money. Like, I'm gonna donate money, and the stipulation is that you'll use this for football and other things to better the city. And if you use it for anything else, it's like a trust. Like, you just pulling it. Like get married in 90 days to get your uncle's money, or you lose it all. Like that. That's like how that works. And strings don't disappear. So like I'd be pretty pissed if I donated money with strings attached and no one pulled the strings after people try to corruptively take something that I donated to the city. But anyways, anyways, yes, JR got, and I'm pretty sure that's why they put him on the OLDC, right? The Olean, it's a donation board. Like they get donations and they apply them to beautify the city and other cool little things to apply donations for. But he got thrown on that. I think that was a way to like shut him up so that he wouldn't complain about the Oilers anymore, and didn't stop him because he's a hard head, but he'll kick ass. He'll take names, and I think he's gonna be really good for the city. Linda's too wishy-washy, and she's been in politics too long. There's always an ulterior motive. JR's motive is like his family, his community. Like that's what motivates him. So I think JR is going to be a stronger candidate. Now, to get in the real dirt of the article, though, so, like, JR is, like, hounding her. So that's the article. What they don't tell you is, and they reference it, so, like, JR went up against her, and, I mean, he lost by 90 votes during the first election, right? But then they get him. Then she gets him. He won the last election. This isn't like some Donald Trump, like, they stole the election thing. This is like, he won it, day of, he won it, until they counted the absentee ballots. At which point, he lost by just under, like, 40 votes. Like, 38 votes. Like, he had won it by, like, 40 votes. 20 votes, 25, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he ended up losing by 40 votes because of absentee ballots. And the reason for that is that Linda is the queen of absentee ballots. You could say, well, that's not so hard. No, it's hard. It takes a lot of time to track down a lot of seniors that don't want to leave, people that have medical conditions. You have to be a seasoned veteran of the election cycle to have that. And even then, it's still a pain in the ass to just grab everybody's votes. You got to go to their house. Like, signatures are a pain in the ass. And, like, so having a few regulars that you can go to and get signatures for petitions to pass is like, like, takes seasoned guys to know that. And then to take it a step further and also go back and collect all your votes. Now, what gives her an unfair advantage, and nobody talks about this, and it was brought up after the last election, and nobody called anybody to have her like wrung out about this, and I think it's about time that it happens. So like if she wins tomorrow, like something is unfair about this system, because I mean, unless JR loses like by an absolute landslide, which I doubt, because there's a lot of people pissed off at Linda right now. There's a lot of people. She went around the ward talking to people, and a lot of people said they did not want a civilian review board for the police department, and she straight up said, I'm getting this big vibe. And I've talked to like 15, 20 people that are in that ward that have said that same thing, that like she came to us and said, what are your thoughts? I'm getting that majority opinion from people they don't want it. And day of, she voted just with everybody else and voted to have a civilian review board. So there's a lot of bad taste in people's mouth, Linda. That's what happens. You can't please everybody. So if you're gonna, they at least would have respected you more if you at least told them you were gonna vote for it, or have a good, understandable reason why you changed your mind at the last minute. But anyways, We don't have a lot of people volunteering at the Meals on Wheels. The Meals on Wheels is a good program. I like it. It revolves on volunteers. But when you volunteer for an organization that gains you access to certain areas that regular people can't get into, especially during COVID, you shouldn't be doing your personal business there. That poses a problem. So Linda volunteers at the Meals on Wheels. Linda uses that to get her foot in the door at Aspen Towers and all these other places you can't get into. You're not even supposed to be in there if you're not visiting one particular person. And she hits up the whole building. Like I've spoken with some of the residents after the last incident that happened. Friends of family members that are in Aspen Towers, people that work there. The place is littered with Linda campaign flyers. Like, how does it get littered with them? I don't know, right? How do these people get their absentee ballots? Like, oh, that's right. Linda drops them off when she drops off their meals. JR tries to get in there. Turned away at the door. Who are you visiting? Are they expecting you? They don't know who you are? Well, you can't come in. Well, first off, I think there's an issue with that because even people that are like have dementia are entitled to at least meet the candidate, right? So the fact that they can't be seen, now I guess COVID poses a whole other argument, right? But then how come the Meals on Wheels person can betray her oath or her fiduciary duty to deliver the Meals on Wheels and then also use it for personal gain? That's my issue. That is my issue. So it's one thing to say, like, I'm the incumbent, right? Like, you already have, like, an advantage. Like, everybody knows who you are, right? Like, I mean, it's to your own advantage. So people like you, they hate, they like you, they hate you. I mean, they know who you are, and that's an advantage all in of itself, right? But the fact that you are, like, betraying the trust of the seniors to, like, you also doing your side marketing to them, I think that's a little bit of bullshit. And then also to hear, not just from like 3 people personally, but also from like the mill of other people that are campaigning and stuff like that they're hearing from relatives and others that live in the ward. Yeah, my brother-in-law gets a call. You hear this. It's not just water cooler talk. Like, there was 2 different people that I talked to that their relatives were patients of Linda's husband, Gil, before he retired. And during the last election, he called all of his clients. I can't verify that he called all of them, but he called a lot of them that lived in Ward 1 because, like, they were just like flowing in. JR told me he could count on, he needed to use toes to count how many people that called him about things like this. Like, hey, my mother sees Gil through this or that, and he was calling his personal clients in his free time saying, hey, yep, it's your doctor, and, my wife Linda's running, and yada yada. And I wish I could get my hands on some of the voicemails that people said that they had saved on answering machines. So, like, we could, like, because I think that in and of itself, like, and he's retired now, so what are you gonna do? Like, take his medical license away? Like, that's a little BS, But like, I don't know. There's, I don't think you'd take someone's medical license over something like that. But maybe you should. I don't know. Like, there's that seems a little unethical that you would call your patients who trust it in you to handle their health needs, not their political needs, their health needs, and then to, like, guide them in one way over another. It's one thing to say, like, yeah, we're sitting there talking about sports, and we talk about the economy, and then we talk about politics, and, like, my wife's running, and you give a couple, like, you know what I mean, like, just in general conversation, but to call them up out of the blue and be like, hey, I want to just kind of sway you this way towards my wife, you really like me, right? And you trust that I'm not going to, like, switch your medication because I need to vote for my wife. Like, I'm not saying that happened, but you know what I mean? Like, there are things that are implied, right? Like, my doctor called me and told me I should vote for his wife. Like, that motherfucker's in charge of my well-being, so probably should. You know what I mean? Like, that there is that possibility that people could think that way, or they have that much trust in their doctor that they would take that, but the doctor is not A doctor is not like is a medical professional, not a political professional. Not as you want to go to your doctor for like, you know, like moral judgments and things like that. Then I mean, I would trust they would make moral judgments, but I would not look to them for moral advice, right? Because that's not their job. You go to a priest, or you go to a trusted family member, a concierge, you know. Consigliere? I feel like it's pronounced concierge, but maybe I'm saying the G too fast. I don't know. Anyways, I think JR's got it. I think Forney's got it. And I still choose Crawford on the money line, but given that it's a rain day, I don't know if you win anything on that one. The stakes are like 10,000 to plus 40,000, so negative 10,000. So Johnny's gonna win that one. I think Forney's gonna beat Ivan, and I got my faith in JR this year, and hopefully Linda has knocked off some of her Meals on Wheels absentee ballot shenanigans, but probably not. Probably not when you think you have a sure thing. Like, it's how all criminals get caught. So JR better get out the vote. Get out the vote. I want to see that vote. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time. Life22. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get the hell to the polls tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, because your ass is going to forget come dinner time. And you're going to be then you're going to like feel all fat and bloated, and you're going to be like, I'll vote next year. Next year's too late. Next year is too late, folks. So we'll see you next time. Peace.